It is a little-known gaming fact that when Ludwig Wittgenstein wrote, "What can be said at all can be said clearly, and whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent," in the preface to Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, he was talking about the video game Fallout New Vegas, released on the 19th of October 2010, after a rushed development cycle so that its publisher could make as much money as possible. The game, in fact, has received whatever the opposite of Wittgenstein's silence is, however. Renowned internet music critic and rocker of an OG GeoCities website, Piero Scaraffi, once wrote about the destruction of around 200 tapes of material by the band Guided by Voices was a fact which stands for the proof of the existence of a merciful God. The changing methods of media dissemination mean that such a fate will not be possible for Fallout's New Vegas criticism, but if the trend for physical media and buying hard copies of your favorite TV shows and films continues, so the cloud overlords can't mess with them, one can dream. Fallout New Vegas is indeed a brilliantly designed game, and it was brilliantly designed under challenging circumstances. The intersection of narrative and gameplay is masterfully done, the player is elegantly ingratiated into its world and ensuing politics. See, for example, the microcosm of the final Hoover Dam battle in the Goodsprings fight at the very beginning of the game, and choices usually feel impactful and consequential. The designers put themselves into the player's position and thought about how they would play the game. Most open-world games, like a conversation with ChatGPT, only feel like the thing they're claiming to represent, or be. Choose your verb according to your metaphysical disposition. Of course, the possibility of a truly open-world game is pretty much zero, since containing all of the possibilities of human life within a discrete set of code wouldn't be possible, although it might be possible by creating a neural network of users' brains so that their imaginations, rather than their disposable incomes, are unified and driven towards a higher purpose. Do let me know how you would engineer such a neural network spanning all of humanity in the comment section below. With the possibility of a truly open world game being distant, the task of the designers becomes, like a poet crafting a metaphor that will endure as much interpretive scrutiny as possible, how to craft a world that caters for as many player actions and decisions as possible. The reason New Vegas is so great to play is that so many of these player actions and decisions have been accounted for, including the ones that might be seen as inconsequential. This is not a decision to be taken lightly. Budget considerations will naturally push resources to the parts of the game deemed worthwhile, often the main questline and the specific stories the developers want to tell. For a game in New Vegas' style, alternate player decisions require additional dialogue from its expensive voice actors. In 2010, maybe not so much nowadays, space on a disc was a legitimate concern too. As has been stated at the beginning of a million Dark Souls videos, the budgets of games in the 2010s started to approach those of blockbuster films, and the passionate gamers commissioning Call of Duty and FIFA sequels looked for better ways to track return on investment. When the whole game was this lavishly and expensively produced, it felt financially irresponsible not to have players experience, for want of a better verb, all of it. The Dark Souls videos will also tell you about how brave Demon Souls was to include the areas that the player isn't guided towards, indeed that are actively hidden, as if this kind of thing didn't exist in Doom or Ulysses. As James Joyce put it, "I've put in so many enigmas and puzzles that it will keep the professors busy for centuries arguing over what I meant, and that's the only way of ensuring one's own immortality." Whether John Romero or James Joyce have ensured their immortality or not, time will tell, but they've damn well been forgotten by the Dark Souls YouTubers. Make sure you buy their trinkets though. What I don't think has been adequately discussed is the use of resources to deepen the game world as opposed to widening it. The Fallout games have a lot to discover, obviously. After Bethesda took the reins, discovering stuff became an end unto itself, and the general vogue of FPS games became more consumptive and vacuous following the rise of the looter-shooter paradigm. The games have a safe and repeatable gameplay model. Explore, discover, loot, And while I enjoyed watching people discussing this gameplay loop, since it's one that I personally enjoy, I don't think that particular point needs 6 hours to make. In a sentence, the comparatively vast resources at Bethesda's disposal have been spent pretty much entirely on widening the game world as opposed to deepening it. Let's take a look at an example of a quest which reflects the developer effort to deepen the world in this way. We will all go together, its name referencing We Will All Go Together When We Go, written by Tom Lehrer.
Or if the bomb that drops on you gets your friends and neighbors too.
Is a pretty pedestrian side quest that involves fetching 9 irradiated dog tags, then dealing with a bit of a moral dilemma to get the 10th. When the player reaches Camp Searchlight, based on the real-world Searchlight in Nevada, they will discover very high levels of radiation and NCR troopers who've been turned into feral troopers, attacking the player on sight. Follow the pathway through the town, and you'll find some non-feral NCR troopers led by First Sergeant Astor, who'll address the player as they approach. He tells the player that the radiation levels are from a dirty bomb detonated by Caesar's Legion, which Astor's squad managed to avoid as they were outside of the town when it went off. If the player asks about the victims of the explosion, Astor will confirm that they're the feral ghouls who attacked the player, lamenting their lack of an honorable death. The player can offer to deliver this death to them, and Astor will offer caps in return for their irradiated dog tags. He'll also give the player Rad-X and Radaway to help them explore the irradiated camp, and some firepower if they can pass a speech check. 9 of the possible 10 dog tags can be found by killing the NCR-clad feral ghouls roaming the area. For the final one, the player needs to find Private Kyle Edwards, who's camped out in one of the enterable buildings in Camp Searchlight. Edwards has become a ghoul, but not a feral one, and is holed up in the house as he's scared of rad scorpions and doesn't feel he has a community given the anti-ghoul prejudice prevalent in Fallout's world. For a non-essential side quest, the variety of options the player has to get hold of Edwards' dog tag and complete Astor's request is pretty huge. The player can just kill him and loot it. Stealthy players can pickpocket it, or more direct strong armors can pass a speech or strength check to get Edwards to give them the dog tag. Another intimidation option allows the player to distort Astor's mission briefing and tell Edwards that Astor plans to kill him. Edwards will then stage an attack on Astor's squad and likely end up getting gunned down, leaving his dog tag for the player to collect. More satisfying, though, is the option which emerges from a conversation with Edwards. The player can ask why he's hiding in the house, and he'll reveal his fear of rad scorpions. 3 will then spawn outside the house. The player can offer to kill them for him, and then convince him that he doesn't need the dog tag anymore. The player can also pass a speech check to falsely claim the rad scorpions have been killed, causing Edwards to run outside to his probable death, but making his dog tag collectible. Less violently inclined players can convince Edwards that there are plenty of places in the wasteland for him to discover, or suggest that he rejoins Astor's squad. This opens up a whole bevy of new options, including telling him that Astor would be happy to see him, another lie which will result in him being gunned down, as Astor thinks that all of the ghouls emerging from Searchlight are feral. The player can also put themselves forward as a negotiator with Astor. A speech check will allow them to convince Astor that Edwards can still contribute something, while an intelligence one will let them show Astor that Edwards, while ghoulified, is not turning feral. Finally, Astor can tell the player that Ranger Station Echo is staffed by ghouls and could take Edwards in, reflecting the prejudice shown to ghouls in the NCR. Including such a depth of choices is admirable in itself, and might make for a good manual for aspiring quest designers, but the icing on the cake here is that you can completely miss Astor and his squad, go through Camp Searchlight, dispatching the feral ghouls and collecting their dog tags, closing out the Private Edwards quest however you see fit, go to explore Cottonwood Cove, where the Legion launched the dirty bomb that covered Searchlight in radiation, wage war on all of the Legion troopers there, thereby completing the quest Eye for an Eye, which Astor will give the player if they talk to him earlier, and then go to see Astor. This is actually what happened to me on my first playthrough. Astor will somewhat condescendingly remark, "You're a beast, son," and act very pleasantly surprised, as we might be too, because the quest acknowledged that it existed in an open world, and the player might have discovered its constituent parts in a different order to the chronological narrative. One line, one moment, the greatest moment in Fallout New Vegas because of the design philosophy it represents. This interaction goes beyond "I discovered extra content." It allows the possibility where the player didn't follow the sequencing intended by the designer. Maybe here we can call it first preference sequencing. A lot of games that are marketed as open world do not make this allowance. There is a sequence you're expected to follow the quest in, or it breaks, you're scolded for not following the script, and the illusion of genuine interaction and control is destroyed. We can contrast this with Nakey Jakey's Red Dead Redemption 2 video. Bless him, he's determined to play along with what it seems like the developers want him to do, but he just can't do it. I would argue that this kind of quest is bad not only because it's unfun for the player, but it creates an obviously fake world, reduces the interactivity of the game to following a script, or failing to complete a quest. But hey, what the hell do developers like Rockstar care when this kind of copy and paste fetch quest prints money? Speaking of money, an important supplement to the central argument I'm trying to make is cost. I don't think the provision of second and third preference sequencing necessarily needs to impact the game's budget as much as it might seem. You could of course have a team who push this principle as far as they can, creating deep sequencing options for every scenario, but really all it needs to be is a kind of guiding principle, as it is here in New Vegas. A couple of extra lines of dialogue here, a changed checkpoint there. Of course, when your financial reality is fetch quests printing money, this type of budget allocation will inevitably become a tough sell. To hell with budgets, we're looking at something more here. Game designers, please take this as an imperative and consider not just the depth of the quests, but where they exist in the world and how players might discover them. While this whole quest is brilliantly structured and the "whoa, you're a beast" moment is both hilariously written and performed, the greatest moment can be every moment that the developers have used their brains to keep the player in their world and simultaneously allow them to play the game with freedom.